Hey everyone, and thanks for checking out another video. You're looking at the SunCoke Energy Haverhill Coke plant. We'll watch every step as freshly mined coal is unloaded, turned into coke for steelmaking, and then loaded into railcars to be delivered to a steel mill. Now I'm going to include a link to another video showing off the facility without any narration, just the ambient sounds if you want to check that out. SunCoke says it's the largest independent producer of coke in the United States. I must say, between this and the Middletown facility, these are extremely clean compared to the older style coke batteries like the ones at Zug Island near Detroit, Michigan, and the Clairton Works near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This is where the fresh coal is unloaded. The cars are dumped in that little structure, and then the coal is stored in this area. That's US Route 52 to the left, and the Norfolk Southern Canova District double-track main line to the right. Just an FYI, I shot this over a few days over 2025. Unfortunately, half this plant is no longer operational at the time this video is published. With the closure, more than a quarter of the hourly workers are losing their jobs. I'll discuss more about that closure in just a little while. This yard is where everything starts or stops in the facility. Loaded coal trains arrive here in those silver hoppers in the tracks closest to us, while the coke-filled black cars will be picked up and taken away by Norfolk Southern. The loaded coal hoppers are pulled through the unloader, also known as the Coal Shakeout. I will say, for as well designed as this plant and the similar Middletown coke facility is, the coal unloaders at both sites seem very poorly designed. You'll see why in just a second. It's a very simple concept. The coal is simply dumped into two hoppers underneath the structure and then carried away on a conveyor belt. Little did I know, capturing this portion would be the most challenging part of the video. We'll watch a hopper be unloaded and then go over the specifics. Keep an eye on the coal at the top of the hopper and watch for it to drop out of view. Just a quick note, the drone I'm using has 3 cameras on it, a 1, 3, and 7 times zoom camera. So while it looks like I'm close, I'm actually still probably 2, maybe 300 feet away, if not further. I always try to do my best to stay as far away as I can so I don't disturb the workers. As we rise up, I know it's dark, but you can still make out that there's a good amount of coal in the bottom of that hopper that still needs to be emptied. I'll show you what they do in just a minute, but let's see a few more hoppers being unloaded. One thing that surprised me about this is the locomotive pulling the cars is unmanned. It's operated by a remote pack from inside the shakeout station. This process is all pneumatically driven with the air charged by the locomotive. Now that air is stored inside of a tank on each hopper car. The mechanism to open and close the bottom gates is activated with an electrical charge from basically an extension cord. This tank at the end of the hopper car is where the air is stored to open and close the bottom doors. Relying on air can be troublesome in the winter though, because if moisture gets into those air lines, well, it can cause them to freeze up. And that means the workers have to thaw out the lines and then add air brake antifreeze to keep them working. For most of the year, the coal shakeout is a 2-person job, one on each end of the car being unloaded. However, when it gets cold, as many as 5 or 6 workers can be helping to unload these cars. Since there's no thaw shed and the coal can freeze into large chunks, sometimes a sledgehammer is needed to break it free. I had to make a special trip back to the facility just to catch the shaker in action. This final trip was pretty cold, so the coal was sticking pretty badly. Now this facility does not have a thaw shed to warm up the coal before it's unloaded, so it can stick together and be a real pain to empty these cars, even if they were sprayed with a release agent. Now after the initial dump of a car, the workers need to let it feed down for several minutes. That's because the 2 hoppers underneath here, well, they cannot hold a full car's worth of coal, so the workers need to give it time to clear some of the product before more can flow down. While this is going on, the shaker is lowered onto the car and rests upon the sidewalls. They give it some juice and it starts to vibrate, knocking the remaining coal down into the hoppers below. So why did it take 3 trips for me to catch this thing in action? Well, I'd actually run out of battery, or I'd think they'd stop loading because it was taking so long. I have plenty of clips of just a hopper car waiting to be unloaded. Now you can check out how much footage I have of those hopper cars doing nothing in the other video. As we rise up, we can see the shaker's done its job and the hopper is nearly completely empty. Let's watch one more hopper be unloaded. You can still see there's plenty of coal left as they lower the shaker onto the car. Notice the walls bouncing when it's switched on. Real quick, let's compare how they do this to the Middletown facility. Up there, they have an arm that pushes down into the coal and then vibrates to break up any chunks. What do you think? Which way is the better system and why? Once a car is empty, they shut the hopper doors, clean off the rails of any coal, and then pull another car into the shakeout building to do this all over again. Once it goes underneath the shakeout station, the coal is carried away by conveyor belt. It's brought above ground here and eventually makes its way to the radial stacker to be sorted into piles. The stacker is controlled by a computer from inside the coal shakeout facility. It can be started, stopped, raised, lowered, moved left or right depending on where the coal needs to go. Once the coal's piled up, you guessed it, another conveyor belt will move it. Now this bulldozer is pushing the coal to the load point for this pile. Notice that big divot it's moving toward. Now the opening to the conveyor belt is underneath there. Also notice that wall. At the time of this recording in 2025, this plant had 2 different coal blends, but with the closure of the phase 1 ovens, it will eventually only offer 1 coal blend. A wider view gives us a better look at the storage yard. There are 4 feeders, 2 on each side of the wall for the coal. We can also see where it comes out of the ground as it's being loaded. If you look closely, you can see the conveyor belt zipping along. Now we've moved to the other side to get the layout of how things move. So the coal is brought up to this first building where it's crushed into a uniform size before moving to storage. The next step is a fork in the road. The coal can either be sent to this structure called the dome, or it can be sent to this building beyond it, featuring 5 large storage bins. Now the dome is used to supplement whatever coal blend it needs to. A front end loader inside is used to scoop the coal into one of 4 feeders underneath, similar to what we just saw with the bulldozer. Now this place really is high tech, and then an operator controls which bin they'd like the coal to flow into with the computer. But as well designed and efficient as this place is, well, aside from the coal shakeout hoppers, it does have a hiccup here and there. Here we see a skid steer loading coal into a front end loader. Now that coal was piled up by a mini excavator from underneath the coal sampling area. You can see the mini excavator has moved next to the dome and another pile of spilt coal. Back to the skid steer area though, the conveyor belt above this has an arm that slides across the belt and pushes samples of coal into a chute that leads into the building to be sent out for analysis. But sometimes things clog up and well, you end up with a spill. So pretty much anywhere the coal can clog, it looks like it does, and then the cleanup begins. Once the front end loader is full, it hauls it away. Here's another look at the dome and the sampling area on the left. And here's a look at the storage building. Each one of these sections is a storage bin. Typically, they hold 3 bins of one type of coal and 2 bins of the other. Alright, now what you've probably been waiting for is seeing the coal loaded into the ovens. This facility is actually considered 2, each consisting of 100 ovens. Now this is Haverhill Phase 2 we're looking at. We'll see its mirror facility to the left, that's Haverhill 1. 1 opened up in 2005, and then 3 years later, 2 came online. Now each is capable of producing up to 550,000 short tons of coke. Where they differ is that 1 sells the steam created in the coke making process to a nearby customer, Altivia Petrochemicals. You'll see that facility in the background in a second. Meanwhile, 2 uses its steam to generate electricity and sell back to the utility. One thing I find curious is why the facilities are split 60-40. There are 60 ovens on the left side of each unit and only 40 on the right. The batteries are known as A, B, C, and D. A and C are the 60 oven batteries on 1 and 2, while B and D are the 40 oven batteries. If you know why they're split like that, I'd love to know. The latest information I could find shows SunCoke produced more than 4 million tons of coke to U.S. and international steelmakers. Now this facility serves Cleveland Cliffs facilities including Indiana Harbor, the Middletown and Cleveland Works, and when the hot side was still operational, the Dearborn Works. The U.S. Steel Gary Works has also received coke from here. Unfortunately, this facility is dealing with some downturns in the market, including Canadian steelmaker Algoma Steel breaching a contract for 200,000 tons of coke. Algoma is pushing to go toward electric arc furnaces at all its facilities. Here we see the pusher charger machine, or PCM, making its way to begin the first push of the day. One by one, the ovens will be emptied and loaded with fresh coal to begin the process all over. There's a specific order of which oven is pushed that the PCM operator is given before everything starts. The PCM operator is in charge of this process. First, the oven door must be removed, revealing the fresh, red-hot coke inside. Then the coke is pushed through to the waiting hot car on the other side of the oven. We'll see that in just a little bit. Here's a look at what the baked coke looks like before being pushed through the oven. Now this image, and a few others you're about to see, are made available by SunCoke for use by the media. I believe the freshly made coke bakes yellow hot, but it's only when the oven door is opened and a rush of fresh air enters that the product ignites. It can catch fire at other times though if it's not fully coked out and all the impurities removed from the coal. Back to the PCM, we can see the door has been removed and lifted, and then the push begins. When the coke loaf push is finished, the hot car heads off to the quench, while the PCM adjusts itself to load coal into the now empty oven. This picture, also from SunCoke, shows the process mid-push. You can see how high the coal was initially stacked by looking at the marks on the wall. Also, notice the vents above where the coal, now coke, sat. This image from SunCoke shows immediately after the push. The coke loaf has been successfully transferred to the hot car. Let's back up a second and see where the coal comes from. The PCM operator is the one who calls for the coal. We'll follow as it heads its way on the conveyor belt to the PCM and then into the coke ovens. Notice these moving bars down here. They go inside the oven and help evenly distribute the coal so it's not bunched up and cooks evenly. Notice how fine and uniform the coal is. There's no storage though on the PCM, so the coal must be started and stopped for each oven. Once there's enough coal in the oven, the distributor is pushed into the oven even further to help spread it out. There's a second worker on the PCM known as the Sill Raker. This worker is in charge of using a high-pressure water hose, which you'll see in just a second, to spray off the coke oven door sill to clear any spilled coal or coke from the area. Now once that's done, the PCM operator will line up the door with the oven and put it back in place. Now because it's so hot, cameras are used to aid in this process, but if those go down, the Sill Raker can help guide the operator into the correct position. Before moving on though, the oven door is locked into position. Now the Sill Raker will use the high pressure water hose to spray off anything on the coke bench while the PCM moves to the next oven. They're also in charge of opening the flue on the oven after it's charged with coal. We'll see that a little later on. The push reports given to the PCM operator detail which ovens are to be pushed and in what order. Now there are even and odd runs. So for instance, this is an odd run. They just pushed oven number 9. So next up will be oven 13, followed by 17, 21, 25, and so on. The same 4 oven count goes for evens as well. So think 2, 6, 10, 14, and on and on and on. These ovens are designed to hold approximately 47 tons of coal, but that's when they're brand new. Over time, more and more carbon builds up on the floor of the ovens and the ceiling, and it limits the amount of coal that can be charged. It takes roughly 2 ovens to load 1 rail car. A loaded coke hopper weighs between 160 and 175,000 pounds, or between 72,000 and 80,000 kilograms. Now it's time to check out what happens on the other side. The door machine is already in position as the hot car makes its return. It unlocks and then mechanically pulls the door back and then shifts it out of the way. The hot car lines into position by sliding forward to connect with the oven. It has small guys on each side to prevent spillage. Once it's sealed, the PCM begins using the pushing ramp to force the red hot coke through. Kind of looks like a lava flow to me. What do you think? After it's all been loaded, the hot car goes on its way and the door machine moves into position to seal this side of the oven. It places the door into position, and then at the end you can see it's locked into position. Once the door is closed, then the PCM can load it with coal and start all over again. The hot car and door machine each have their own operator. Now once it arrives at the Quench Tower and is lined up, the coke is pushed off the hot car and onto the quench car with a stationary ram. Notice the hinge the ram has in the yellow paint to warn anyone not to run into it when it's in the lowered position. Now the quench car is on rails and has a gate that opens up to butt up against the hot car. Once everything is in position, the stationary ram forces the coke loaf into the quench car. That's the quench pit where you see the water spilling into. The water is recirculated throughout the quenching process. Now the quench operator then pulls the quench car under the tower. You can see the rear end of it there. From there, he shuts the gates and starts the quench cycle. Now water washes down over the still red hot coke, creating a massive amount of water vapor in doing so. There's one more step back at the ovens. Once an oven has been charged with coal, this picture from SunCoke shows the Sill Raker needs to open the soil flue underneath the ovens. Now the soil flue draws gases underneath the oven floor where more air is introduced to complete the combustion process. SunCoke says this feature allows the ovens to be self-sustaining without requiring auxiliary fuel. Let's watch the Coke loaf push once more, this time from behind the stationary ram. There we see the Wharf and the previously quenched Coke. A moment later and the quench starts. Now once it's finished, there we will see a splash shield being raised, and then the Coke is dumped onto the Wharf. You can see there is still plenty of red hot embers. Now the quench car is able to tilt itself, similar to a dump truck emptying itself. Now the workers keep an eye on the piles to make sure nothing ignites or burns, but sometimes it does and they need to take some action. Check out the water spray at the bottom of the screen. Let's jump to a different day and see the hose in action. I believe the water cannon is similar to what you'll find on top of a fire truck ladder apparatus. Notice the control the operator has with the hose. Once the Coke has been quenched and the hot spots extinguished, it's ready for the next step. Those mechanical stoppers are called Wharf gates. They gradually allow it to fall onto the conveyor belt underneath and then take into the Coke loadout. The quench operator or Coke loadout operator, well, they can control them from the computers at their stations. Now this is a delicate balance because the operators must be careful not to overload the conveyor belts, especially in the colder winter months. Here's another look at the Quench Pit. Every so often it needs to be dug out. That excavator is used to remove what are called Quench Pit drippings. That's a mixture of Coke that spills into the pit as well as Coke breeze. That's then stockpiled, screened, and reclaimed back into a hopper during production. Well, we made it to the home stretch. We've been watching the operations at Haverhill Phase 1. This is the phase that was shut down. It served for 20 years, from 2005 to 2025. Once the Coke is on the conveyor belt, it will travel around 2,000 feet to get to the loadout. Phase 2 is about 4,000 feet away. Now each phase has its own conveyor line to the loadout. Our Coke is riding on this conveyor belt and dropped onto this line here. Now this is transfer building E. Interestingly though, this top line is actually feeding Coke to it as well. We'll see where that's coming from in just a second. Here's a closer look at the Coke in the conveyor belt. Notice how there's only a little Coke on that other conveyor belt. As we keep moving, the Coke enters the top of the screening plant before being dropped onto another conveyor belt and ultimately into the belly of the rail cars. This building has two screening decks, each fed by its own plant feed conveyor, the two tallest ones. Now the two lower conveyors are recirculating conveyor belts. They send any Coke that happens to miss the screening process for whatever reason back to the transfer tower to try again. Here's another look at that final step before being dumped into the hopper cars. Notice how much dust is created in this process. Just like the coal dump operation, the locomotive pulling the cars for the coke loading is also remotely controlled. For any rail fans, that's an EMD GP20D, a very unique looking locomotive if you ask me. So unlike a continuous loader operation, the engine starts and stops as the cars are filled. One quick note, check out this fencing. That's to try and catch any dust from spreading out onto the surrounding area. Coal and coke produce quite a bit of dust that sticks to just about everything. So this is pretty cool. There are two chutes on this loader. The one they're using now is the primary loader from what I can tell. Also, notice the water being sprayed. There are two halos on each chute continuously spraying water to reduce the dust as the coke tumbles out. Well, back to the two chutes. The design means the operator can keep a continuous flow of coke going. All he has to do is switch which chute the coke goes into and keep going. Eventually, the operator will switch back to that front chute. Alright, keep an eye on the chutes and you'll see that switch happen. It looks like there's a great deal of dust being created, but that's actually mostly water from what I can tell. Here's a little wider view for you. Well, that does it for the coke making and loading. Once the coke is loaded and the coal train is empty, they'll both head back to the yard to wait for Norfolk Southern to pick them up. Here we see CIT locomotive 414 pushing the empty coal cars into the yard. That locomotive is an EMD GP38-2 originally built for the Southern Railway. In the top left corner of the screen, you'll see a few cars in the High Line. That's where cars go that are having mechanical issues or maybe they're frozen during the winter and can't be unloaded. Also, take note of what that area to the right looks like. Once the empty coal or loaded coke trains are ready to go, Norfolk Southern will come in and take them away, either to the end customer or for the empty coal trains, they'll head a few miles away to the Wheelersburg facility to be loaded and brought back to start the process all over again. We'll check that facility out in a future video. Alright, back to Haverhill. Notice this big pile of coke. Well, in 2025, SunCoke reported Canadian steelmaker Algoma Steel breached its contract with the coke maker. Algoma transitioned to electric arc furnaces at its steelmaking facilities and no longer needed the coke. So while SunCoke tried to force Algoma to honor its contract, workers here began stockpiling the coke Algoma should have been receiving. Now, I'm not sure how the breach of contract was worked out between the two companies, but eventually, SunCoke began selling this coke on the open market. It was loaded into trucks and then brought to a dock to be shipped to its next customer. Alright, well, let's check out a few more odds and ends before finishing this trip. This is where the Quench Pit drippings and any cleanup material from the coke side of the ovens ends up. It's screened and then reclaimed back into production. Notice how fine the piles are on the right compared to the larger chunks than the ones on the left. Now we're back on the coal side of things in the storage area. Remember the spilt coal from earlier? Well, this is where it's brought. Everything is screened again through that yellow machine. Dump trucks then carry the material over to be put back in the pile and turned into coke. I really hope you enjoyed this video and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I know I sure enjoyed making it and it was so much fun to learn how this facility operates. Until our next trip, I hope you have a great day.